O Lord, may the words of my mouth, meditation of each and every one of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. For you are our strength and our Redeemer. Like I said, I love that story from 1 Kings, that story of Elijah's contest with the prophets of Baal. The queen was Jezebel. Now you've heard that name. Jezebel was a woman that went after the Baals. She's the one that kind of turned her husband and came towards the worship of these other gods. And she had promoted this and promoted this and promoted this. Prior to this, God bless you. Prior to this, she tried to have Elijah killed. He had to go and hang out in caves in the woods to avoid himself from getting killed by the queen. This story happens as he comes back out into public from this self-imposed exile. Because God said, it's time to go back now. And so he goes back, and there are, being Christian or being Jewish at this point, okay, worshiping God, the Lord, was not popular. It was a fringe movement by this time. The queen had been very successful in kind of pushing it to the side. And you can see that in the ratio here. Baal, one of the main pagan gods, had 450 prophets. The Lord God had one. And I love the way Elijah approaches this. He says, okay, you think your God, Baal, is God? I say the Lord God is God. Let's have a contest to see who really is God. And I'm sure the prophets of Baal looked at each other and said, he said it in front of everybody. I guess we kind of got to go along with this. Okay, fine, we'll have a contest. And so he says, okay, take 2 bulls. You guys pick a bull, set up an altar, put stones out, put wood on top of the altar, take the bull, cut it in half. That'll take a while to cut the bull in half. Lay the sides over against each other. And then call on the name of your God to send down fire to consume the bull. And I'll do the same thing. And whatever God responds with fire is God. So the prophets of Baal get together, they make their altar. He lets them go first. They get their altar, they set up the wood, they get the calf, the bull, they cut it in half, they lay it out, and they start doing dances around the altar. And they're chanting, and they get in a frenzy, and they're yelling, oh, Baal, set down fire! And they're yelling and dancing around. They're getting so frenzied, they're cutting themselves with swords, there's blood coming off them. 450 guys doing this, right? This is a spectacle. This is like a major, major thing. So after they've been doing this for a couple of hours, Elijah comes up and says, hey, maybe you need to yell louder. Maybe he's asleep. You know, maybe he wandered off. He's taking a message or something. Come on, yell louder, he can't hear you. And nothing happens. So then Elijah sets up the altar of the Lord that had been in that spot and had been torn down, part of Jezebel's program. And he sets it up using 12 stones to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. You see 12 all throughout the Old Testament for that reason. And he sets them up, and he gets wood, and he pours the wood, puts the wood all over the altar, and he gets the bull, and he cuts it in half, and he lays it out. Now that's what he asked the other guys. God had given him these instructions, and God said, take 4 water jars. Now it doesn't say how big the jars are here, but my guess is they were probably the traditional jars, which held 30 or 40 gallons. Remember the water into wine at Cana of Galilee? It says there that those jars were the ceremonial ones that were used for ceremonies, and they were held about 30 to 40 gallons. So I'm guessing that these 4 jars that he had filled held 30 or 40 gallons. So you're talking 120 to 160 gallons of water. He has them pour all over this thing, on the wood, which supports the fire, obviously, and on the sacrifice, and all over the altar, and there's a ditch to contain the water so it doesn't run all over the place. And then he has them do it again. And then he has them do it again. So you're talking well over 500 gallons of water poured all over this wood, and all over this sacrifice, and all over these stones, and filling up the trench, all 9 yards. And then he prays to God. Doesn't dance around, doesn't jump up and down, doesn't cut himself with swords. He prays to God, and all of a sudden, out of heaven, fire. Whoa! So much fire, so hot, that not did it burn up the sacrifice that was soaked with water, not only did it burn up all the wood that was soaked with water, you know, wood absorbs water. You ever try to start a campfire with wet campfire wood? Yeah, not too easy. It burned up the rocks, and it burned up all of the water around the thing. Now, can you imagine being there watching this contest? Absolutely amazing. I can imagine being done. I'm not aware of a movie that was ever made that depicts this, but I would love to see it. I can imagine the special effects, that huge fire consuming everything and being so massively powerful. I mentioned that Elijah had been sequestered in a cave. He went to hide from Queen Jezebel. Ravens came and brought him food. He ran upon a widow who offered him the last little bit of grain she had, the last little bit of oil so he could make a cake. It was all that she had for her and her kid. Offering that to him meant that she would die. She would starve to death. There was a time of drought. It had not rained for years. Elijah prayed to God to shut up the heavens. It had rained for like 3 years, I believe. So Elijah made a cake, but it turned out that the oil in the thing and the grain didn't run out. There's a little tiny bit in there. It's like, okay, you got a recipe calls for an ounce of oil, and you have an ounce of oil, so you put an ounce of oil in there, you look inside the thing, there's still an ounce of oil. That's what ended up happening here. And Elijah hid, and he said to God, I am the only prophet left of you, and they're trying to kill me. I can't go any place. God said, listen, I got you covered. Being my servant does not require popularity. It does not require going along with the crowd. It does not require you to conform to things that are not what you should be doing. Interesting, this passage from the Gospel is in here. Also a very cool passage. It's one of those where we see that people outside of the Jewish community have developed faith in Jesus. Now, we don't know this centurion. We don't know his name. There are a couple of different centurions mentioned in the Gospel. Is it the same one? We don't know. A lot of commentators will assume it is, but we don't know. What we know about the guy is that he had heard about Jesus. He had heard about healings and things Jesus had done. And that he was a pretty decent guy. Now, if you think about how the Jewish people looked at the coming Messiah, the thought was that the Messiah would be a military leader. The Messiah would raise an army and use that army to throw out the Romans and reestablish the kingdom of David. Israel as a separate country, not underneath somebody's thumb. Now, first off, you want your independence, yeah. But an awful lot of this was because of the way the Romans treated the Jews. There was actually a law that any Roman could compel any Jew, including someone very elderly and in bad health, to carry a load, I believe it was a mile. So imagine you've got a feeble grandfather, and some Roman comes along and compels him to pick up this big heavy case and carry it, and you can't do anything about it. Romans were not the kind of people you liked having around. They were miserable, horrible, rotten people. After all, they had militarily conquered most of the known world at the time. They had a huge army. If you look at the map of the Mediterranean, basically everything all the way around it, except for Africa, was controlled by Rome. And there was Roman influence in Africa. They had raised huge armies. They had conquered people. When people went against them, what they did is they put stakes up along the very public, most traveled roads and nailed them to them and let them hang there until they died, usually 3 or 4 days. It's called crucifixion. Crucifixion was around long before Jesus was killed. It was used by the Romans as a way of, don't mess with Rome. You mess with Rome, this is what happens to you. Not the kind of people you want around. Yeah, you can watch Engineering Empire on the History Channel, and some amazing things they were able to accomplish. But it was because of this brutal dictatorial thing. Because all those aqueducts and all those kind of things, they were all built with slave labor. They were miserable, rotten people. And now we have the story of Jesus coming into Capernaum and having people come up to him. Jewish elders, which would have been the leaders in that town, came up to him and begged for him to come and heal a Roman servant. And you could tell that this was not normal because they said, listen, he deserves this. He's a good guy. He's one of the good ones. He built our synagogue for us. He made it possible for us to worship God. He deserves your help. As Jesus says, okay, let's go. And they start heading over before they even get to the house. Some other guys come up and say, the centurion sent us to you. He said, don't come to my house. I don't deserve it. He said, listen, like you, I'm a man under authority. If I send one of my soldiers to do something, I don't have to see him do it. I know he's going to do it. If I send somebody else to take care of something else, I don't have to see him do it. I know they're going to take care of it. So all I need is for you to say the word, and my servant will be healed. I got to expect that this was a major event in this guy's life. That this happened because of this guy Jesus, and it had to deepen his faith. But I also got to wonder what that did to him among his fellow centurions and other Romans. Israel had a reputation for chewing people up and spitting them out. You know why Pilate acquiesced to the Jewish leaders when they sought to have Jesus crucified? Because the Jews are obnoxious and obstinate, and we have a problem with them, and they'll riot, and you won't hear about it, and I'll get my butt. If I'm lucky, I won't get killed. So he went along after making a half-hearted attempt to free Jesus. So you got to figure that this guy, going along with these obstinate Jews and helping them and supporting them, probably didn't have the greatest reputation anyway, and then this other thing happens. He didn't go along with the crowd. One of the things that happens during our election campaigns, people tend to get caught up in excitement. I saw a headline the other day, I don't know what it said. Didn't read the article, and I don't know where it happened or any of the details, but the headline was, Pro-Trump supporters clash with anti-Trump supporters. And based on some of the stuff I've seen in the past, more than likely there was some fighting, definitely some yelling, more than likely some fighting, maybe some rock throwing and stuff like that, because that happens. And people get caught up in this. We call it mob mentality, right? Something nasty happens, you get caught up with it. And you end up getting swept along with it, and you end up doing things that you wouldn't do otherwise. I remember years ago, when I first started as a pastor, my very first year, it was before the merger of the Northern and Southern Conferences. And the old Northern Conference, Conference Youth Ministry Team, used to sponsor an event every year called Winter Weekend. And it was held at a resort center in the Poconos. And I took a group of kids from my church. I had my sons Jim and Tom, two sisters whose grandfather actually had been the pastor of the church in years past. And a brother and sister from a family who, they dropped them off for Sunday school and picked them up afterwards. So the family was in church. And we go to this retreat, and you've got about 100 young people. And it's your normal type of youth retreat. A lot of praise music, very up type of music. A lot of it with dance, people dancing around, people doing the hand signs, all those kind of things. At a later point in the weekend, I want to say Sunday, there was a break in the schedule. And we sat down together with your youth group. So I'm sitting there with the kids from the church. And the question was, so, what are your impressions of this weekend? I mean, for pretty much every one of them, it's the only time they've been to something like this. What are you thinking? Is this good? Is this bad? Is this cool? Is this unexpected? Where are you at? And the young man from that family that was not a church family said, when I got here, I thought some of these people were really, really weird. Well, when they sing songs, they're putting their hands up in the air. And they're swaying back and forth. And they're yelling, "Oh, Jesus!" And I'm thinking to myself, this is really, really weird. Some of these people are like nuts. He says, but after I've been here a little while, I was thinking it's kind of cool. There are 100 people separated from the world. No TVs, cell phones taken away, all that kind of stuff. If they were even that prevalent back then, about 20 years ago. And there's a whole bunch of people around who are all into doing this act of worship and all these kind of things. And they went along with the crowd. In this case, going along with the crowd was a good thing. But they went along with the crowd. Those two young people, that young man who made that comment, finished Sunday school, got confirmed, just like the old joke with the bats. Baptized and confirmed them, you haven't seen them since. So got back into the world and fell back into the popular culture. A culture that says, well, you know what, if you believe in Jesus, that's all very well and good, but don't tell me about it, number one, and it's just a whole, it's crock based on people not understanding where lightning comes from, so they think there's somebody up there throwing bolts at you. It's a pre-scientific relic that is not real. And I'm smart, so I don't believe in that. Isn't that what our society says? I'm not crazy about it either, but it is what our society says. I was mentor for a young man who was the pastor of the church where Bethany United Methodist Church started in Fort Lake. Bethany is one of the largest churches in our annual conference. It's a huge Korean church in Wayne. It has something like 3,500 members. Their weekly worship attendance is like 800 people. They have to have multiple services and all this kind of stuff. Huge sanctuary, it's not big enough. They're actually considering moving. Their facility looks like a banquet hall, and it's too small. They were started in a little tiny church in Fort Worth. Smaller than this. Little tiny church. And I was a mentor for the guy who was the pastor, who was appointed to Bethany to be the pastor of this particular church. And he would go to China all the time for mission trips, at least twice a year. And he went for years and years and years. He ended up leaving the Methodist Church to go and move to China to become a missionary. And he explained to me what was happening in China from an on-the-ground perspective. There are Christian churches, okay, that are allowed to legally exist in China. The pastor is required to go to a state-operated school. Remember, communism is officially atheist. Okay? They have to go to a state-sponsored seminary, learn all the state-sponsored info, and then teach only state-approved messages. Those churches are sparsely attended. But there are a lot of people, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year, who meet with each other in houses and read the Bible and worship God. House churches are what they have in the New Testament. And these house churches are growing and expanding. And every single one of the people who goes in there knowing there's a pretty good chance they're going to get arrested and thrown in jail because they have the audacity to worship Jesus Christ against the law. The United States Constitution guarantees freedom from religion. Oh, wait. Freedom of religion. So we don't have to worry about getting arrested when we come here. It's not against the law for us to come together and worship. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 people. Church tends to expand when it's persecuted. We're not persecuted. Not directly. And so membership of the United Methodist Church in the United States is doing this. I believe it's changed, and I believe it's slowed somewhat. about 5 years ago, I heard a statistic that if the rate of decrease in the United States of United Methodists continued at this present rate, 25 years, there would be 0 United Methodists in the United States of America. When I was a kid, I was raised in the 60s and 70s, basically. Pretty much everybody went to church or something. There was a social pressure to be in church. My sister moved down south to Greenville, South Carolina. She'd stop going to church. She's going now because people are like, oh, where do you work? That's nice. Where do you go to church? I don't go to church. Wow! You can go to mine! She's back in church. That social pressure still exists now. But you know what happens in the churches? People viciously glare at each other because they're worried about what color the wall should be painted. Should we replace the old hymnal with the new hymnal? What version of the Bible should we have up here? And people fight over all this stuff. You know, it's interesting to me that in this letter to Galatians, and like I said in the introduction, that normal Paul will write a note of thanksgiving. I have heard about your faith and the way in which you live out your faith, and I praise God for you every day in my prayers. That's what we've heard from Paul in a lot of letters, right? That's how they start. Here, he doesn't say that. Because that church is not acting. One of the things that sometimes influences us as people who follow Christ is popular culture. Popular culture says, like I said before, you want to believe in Jesus? Okay, don't bother me with it. Don't stick it in my face. Well, Jesus said, that very last thing he said, before ascending to heaven, go out into the world and teach everybody all that I've taught you. Baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and lo, I will be with you always to the very end of the age. We call that the Great Commission. That is the mission of the church. Our Book of Discipline in the United Methodist Church says the purpose of the church is to make disciples of Jesus Christ. The local church is the most significant place where that happens. That is what we are about. We're not about each other. We're not about making sure that Pat feels good on her birthday. We're about going out there and inviting people in. Introducing them to Jesus Christ. That's not popular today. That's not popular. That makes you pushy. It makes you obnoxious. So we see an opportunity and we think, yeah, somebody I know they don't go to church. Well, maybe I should invite them. Yeah, if I do that, they're not going to like me. They're going to think I'm obnoxious, and they're going to be, most people think I'm obnoxious anyway, but they're going to think I'm obnoxious. And they're not going to want to be around me. And so I don't do the most important thing Jesus told me to do because it's not popular. We're not about popularity. We're about making disciples of Jesus Christ. Introducing people to Christ. That's what we are supposed to be about as a church. But we've got all this pressure on us from all different directions. And so we turn our back. We wander away. We go along with the prevailing idea of, what is church? Well, church is a nice place where people who like each other get together, sing songs, and have spaghetti dinners. That's what church is about. No. That is turning your back on God and becoming a prophet of Baal. Prayer said, put away your idols. Can idols be popularity? Can idols be being liked by everybody? Can idols be the spaghetti dinner? Yeah. God first. God's directives. God's desires. Number one. Is that how you do it? Let's pray. Lord God, we give you thanks for your continual presence with us and for your giving of yourself that we might be effective in doing the tasks you've called us to. God, sometimes for us it's so easy to go along with the crowd. We end up turning our back. We pray that you would be with us, continue to infuse us with your Spirit. Help us to build each other up so that we might do the things that we're supposed to be doing and not become prophets of Baal. We thank you for your amazing demonstrations of your power. We thank you for your healing mercies. We thank you for all that you are. In our concerns for your creation, Lord God, there are many people who struggle with all different kinds of things. So we come to you raising the names of people we know, that they might feel your pull, and that we might be able to help them connect with you because of the things that you have done and who you are. For all those who will be victims or friends or family of victims over this Memorial Day weekend, Lord, in your mercy,